I'm Phoebe the dog, and I'm going to read to you. Good evening. I'm Neil Christiansen, author of Dark White and Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. And tonight, we're going to be reading another chapter from Dark White. Tonight, we'll be reading Chapter 5, June 12th, 2012, 12:16 p.m. The tables in the prison mess were laid out in a grid system. Each of the collapsible tables held 16 men, 8 per side. There were 10 rows and 4 columns, 40 tables, 640 men total, plus 10 or so men working in the kitchen and slop lines. Call it 650. For that, they had 8 guards in the hall during all meals. 8. 2 at each of the entrances and 4 strolling through the grid. After Jeremy died and I took care of that asshat Benson, I started eating in the mess again. People didn't fuck with me anymore. I had a reputation. A new reputation. I was the guy that would drop a fucking free weight on your head, and I sort of liked it. I always sat in the same seat, north end, last row, last seat. I don't like being boxed in. I wanted to be able to move, to escape quickly if the situation demanded it. Being at the far corner meant that if there was a situation, something that escalated, I was already out of the crowd. I wouldn't have to move through a sea of men bleeding testosterone and resentment. Riots were vanishingly rare, and mass brawls only slightly less so, partly because of the institutional consequences, but also because I made sure of it. The extra quarter decade added to my sentence spoke volumes to the other inmates. It let them know that I didn't give a shit. I did my best to back that up. I knew I wasn't getting out, and the satisfaction my revenge had given me all but silenced the nagging voice of weather in my head. After that, I had taken it upon myself to make sure that the well-behaved inmates were protected from the less courteous. I didn't care about drugs or gangs, but I did care about violence. I made it my job to bulk up, muscle up, and get into other people's business. I put myself between those trying to do their time in peace and those out to make a name for themselves. The guards noticed and all but endorsed my efforts. Life got better, not just for me, but for everyone. But in prison, you just never know what can happen, and I found it best to stay at the fringes, just in case. The truth is, most guys had a specific place where they sat. Mostly it was the same guys sitting around me every day, and mostly I was okay with that. I liked routine. It's what made the whole situation tolerable. Predictability and routine were your best friends inside. They're what kept you safe. I wouldn't go so far as to say I trusted the guys I sat with. That would be a bridge too far. I didn't really trust anyone in there. But I did know them, and in prison, as in the world at large, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. So I had my spot, and they all had theirs, and that's the way it was. Mostly. That day we were eating asparagus again. As usual, it wasn't good. It was cold and overcooked, mushy and bland, and enough to make you gag if you looked at it when you ate it. But it was on the line, so it's what we ate. In retrospect, I'm pretty sure the reason that there was so much asparagus in our diet was to reduce the sexual proclivities of some of the inmates. Even cold, overcooked, mushy, bland asparagus was effective at making your piss smell foul. Across from me sat Marco. Marco was of some kind of Mediterranean descent. He was in for shooting his business partner after their startup went belly up. He suspected his partner of embezzling profits and causing the company to fail. I suspected that there were no profits and he was just a douchebag and didn't know how to manage his anger. I suppose I was the pot and he was the kettle. Marco was chatting with the guy next to him, rambling on about something that I was trying hard to ignore. I mostly tried to ignore as much as I could, but my attention was caught when Marco suddenly stood up. I glanced up and saw a big guy I didn't recognize. He was tall, with a big frame, sandy blonde hair cut short and starting to gray. He wore a 5 o'clock shadow, even though it was only just after 12 in the afternoon, and had deep lines around his eyes and across his forehead, like a farmer after a grueling summer in the fields. He whispered something to Marco, who leaned back to look the guy over. Another whisper, and Marco stepped over the bench, grabbed his tray, and left. The new guy took his seat. I looked at him with deep disapproval. This was the kind of thing that made me nervous, and when I got nervous, that churning in my gut started up. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck twitch and tingle, and a little ringing started up in my ears. "I'm Jake," he said to me, ignoring the others around us. His voice was deep and had a rattle to it like he had a loose stone stuck in his throat. It was unsettling, and I tightened up inside. "Hello, Jake," I said without giving way to friendliness. "You're Gavin, right? Gavin Gale?" I paused for a moment, then gave him a small nod. He talked fast, verbal diarrhea. He was trying to get it all out before I stopped him. "Good. Gavin, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something, and then you and we're going to put on a little show. The two of us. I'm telling you this now, giving you a heads up because I need you to trust me." I cringed. This was getting worse by the minute. "I don't know you," I said. "I know that. I know you don't know me, and you don't trust me or anyone else for that matter, but, and I can't stress this enough, this is really important, and I really need your help." I didn't have anything to say to that. I didn't mind helping people out when it suited me, but there was something about the way this guy was acting that gave me the heebie-jeebies. There's a difference, albeit small, between not trusting someone and distrusting them. As he had said, I didn't trust anyone in there, but I was beginning to get the slightest instinct to distrust this Jake guy. I just stared at him. "Right. Okay," he said. Jake pulled out an object and set it on the very edge of the table. He covered it with his arms and hands such that only I could see it. It was a knife, or more specifically, a dagger. Not a shiv, a real dagger. It had a shiny chrome blade and a thick black handle. This was not something a person could get in prison. This was real-world merch. It had to have been snuggled in intentionally, and it had to have been by someone who had power. No way this got shipped in inside a birthday cake. It was real and dangerous, and it was in the hands of a man I didn't know, sitting directly across from me. "You know who I am, right?" I said in a slightly threatening tone. "I do." "What is it you think is going to happen here?" I asked. Jake nodded and motioned at the blade with his eyes. "I have a friend. On the outside. Somebody pretty important, actually. She's got a daughter. Good kid. Sweet. Good grades. No drugs. No drinking. She ran into some trouble. Like what your friend got into. But she didn't have a guy like you to stand up for her. When you get out, I want you to help her." I gave a tired snort. "I'm not getting out, Jake. Not anytime soon. If you know who I am, then you know I got another 25 added after that thing with the weight in the yard, and nothing I do in here is ever going to constitute good behavior. Sorry, man. Plus, not to belabor the point, but I don't know you." "I know. I have nothing I can do right now, at this moment, to make you trust me. But the thing is," he rubbed a palm over his tired face and through his aging hair. He looked exhausted. "The thing is, I need you to. I need you to trust me, and I need you to trust me right now. Right now, at this moment. This is the moment we have, and all I can tell you is..." He took a deep breath. "I've been in here a long time." "And that's supposed to make me trust you?" I laughed. "I've been here a long time, Gavin, and you don't know me." I saw where he was going. Since the incident with Benson in the weight yard, I knew everyone. Everyone that was potential trouble, at least. I advertised by way of word of mouth what was expected. Guys inside knew, do as you like, just don't piss off Gavin. It was clear I wasn't trying to impress anyone, and I didn't care about getting out. Act up, make my life harder or more unpleasant, and I'd simply eliminate you as a problem. I was hopeless and angry and had nothing to lose. If I didn't know this guy, it meant he'd been keeping himself clean in there. That's something, I said. But I'm sorry. It's not enough. I know, he said with a tone that was tired and genuine. I told you. I can't make you trust me. I just need you to. So, Jake, he looked me in the eyes, picked up the cup of coffee that was sitting between us, and dumped it down his own shirt. What the fuck? He yelled. What the fuck was that? Who the fuck do you think you are? My heart stopped and I felt the cold metallic sensation of adrenaline surge through my body. I jumped out of my seat and took 2 quick steps back, but Jake was up too. I sidestepped and he matched me move for move. You whiny entitled piece of shit. Who the fuck do you think you are? The room went quiet. Everyone was looking at us. I sidestepped again, but he followed me and stepped closer. In a flash, he moved his hand past his shirt and produced the knife. He started swinging it at me, wide, arcing swings, coming nowhere near me, but showing off the blade to everyone around. The fluorescent lighting in the mess hall gleamed on the chrome blade and caught everyone's attention. The 4 guards who had been strolling around the room started moving in quickly towards the commotion. No, Jake, don't do this, I pleaded. Now, he whispered. I looked around, trying to find a way out. The room was packed, and everyone was starting to gather around us. I stepped back on my left foot, faked right, and then stormed forward, trying to get past Jake. He spun backwards and caught me in the chest with the back of his right forearm. It knocked the wind out of me, and he grabbed my shirt and spun me to face him. Then, quick and simple, he slid the blade into my side right between my ribs. I was shocked. There was no pain. Jake looked into my eyes, and we stood there for what felt like an eternity, holding on to each other, not moving, not speaking. Then the pain set in, and I felt the knife slide out. I felt my knees buckle, and I fell to the floor at his feet. He came down with me, holding me, lowering me gently. There was blood everywhere now. It was on me, on Jake, on the knife, on the floor. I felt a sense of quiet and peace. I laid my head on the floor, closed my eyes, and heard the same breathless voice say, "Thank you." There was commotion around me, and I felt Jake get pulled away. There were hands on my body, touching me, feeling me, looking for the wound, but almost immediately I heard the voice of the managing physician of the infirmary clearing people away. I was lifted off the ground and placed gently onto a stretcher. My wrists and ankles were strapped down and we started moving. There was a long and rushed journey down the corridors of the prison and through the double swing doors of the infirmary. Then silence. Blood was everywhere now. It was on my face and in my hair and all over my clothes. It ran between my fingers, oily and sticky. I felt cold, and the room swam around me. I remember wondering how I was still alive. How much blood do you have to lose to die? I saw the doctor in a prison guard uniform with a white lab coat over it. He approached me and looked me up and down. He bent over and looked into my eyes. He whispered something to me, but I couldn't understand it. Then he picked up a syringe off the steel tray next to the gurney and gave me a shot of something. Almost immediately, the room went gray and foggy and suddenly black. Of all the chapters in this book, that one is probably the one that is most different from how I originally wrote it. Because when I originally wrote that scene, that chapter, I didn't think I wanted Gavin to actually get stabbed. And so there was this whole thing with Jake where he sat across from Gavin and he pulled out the blade and he set it down. And then I described in detail how he put a finger on the the base of the handle and a finger on the tip of the blade and pushed, and Gavin saw the blade retract into the handle, indicating that it was fake. And then he also had next to him like a balloon of red liquid. And so the whole thing was that he was going to fake, they were going to do this dance, this thing, and fake him. But the problem with that was, Gavin made a whole thing about how he didn't trust this guy. He didn't know him. And I didn't think that Gavin would play along. I was like, if he like fake stabs him, Gavin's just gonna like deck him, right? Um, and I tried to write it where Gavin was like, I don't know why I played along. I just, and I got to the point where I was like, this is baloney. He wouldn't do it. So so I changed it to him being stabbed for real. Um, and that was a big change. Um, the other thing is that between the last chapter and this chapter, there used to be a whole other thing about how the prison guards started using Gavin as an enforcer. How they would set him up with someone that they were frustrated with or annoyed with or found to be problematic, and they would basically, get some problematic inmate in a room alone with Gavin, and Gavin would, do what he did. And there's a whole scene in the library where Gavin's sitting there playing chess, and he slowly notices that the library kind of like emptied out and got quiet. And then all of a sudden the door opens and this big guy stumbles in, and then the door slams and locks. It was too much. It was too on the nose, and that got shortened down to basically the line in the chapter where he says that the prison guards all but condoned my actions. Right. So that's how you can take like an entire, like almost an entire chapter, and shrink it down into half a sentence. Um, and sometimes that's the right thing to do. Uh, I don't know exactly how I feel about the change ultimately. Um, there was a reason why I didn't want him actually stabbed, right? I didn't want, like, the whole point is that he had become tough and big and powerful, and people didn't fuck with him, and even when they did, like, he was able to take him out. And so to have this other guy just like show up and be able to like stab him that quickly kind of, I felt, took some of the power away from him. But it had to happen. um, this scene had to it has to happen, and you'll see why in the next chapter. But it had to happen. So at some point you just do the best you can, and you rely on suspension of disbelief from the audience to go with it. Every author does this. Every book you read has moments that are just purely implausible, uh, or at the very least improbable in their storyline. And you have to like have moments that you're willing to step over in service of story. And that's what we're doing here. So that was that. It's an important scene. It's a pivotal scene in the course of the story. And we will find out why when we read chapter 6 next time. In the meantime, if you'd like to follow along, you can pick up a copy of Dark White on either ebook or paperback anywhere you get books. You can also pick up a copy of the follow-up to Dark White. Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey is a standalone book in, what do we call them? And it's an interconnected standalone. It's a standalone book in the same universe as Dark White. It's a nice little it's a nice I mean, it's a novel, but it's a shorty. Um, and it's action packed and really fun, with a new character, Malcolm Karma. And you can get that anywhere that books are sold as well. You can get it as an ebook on Kindle and read it for free on Kindle Unlimited if you are a participant in that program. And you can get the paperback anywhere else, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Target.com, whatever. Um, but if you want this cute little thing that is what we call a trade paperback size, it is pocketable. It sits right in your back pocket, and it's got a weathered cover, kind of some nice weathering there, and on the back, with matte finish, and it's nice and itty bitty. This is the Dime Store Special Edition, and this is available exclusively through my Patreon, even my free Patreon. If you go to my free Patreon, sign up for my Patreon there, you will get access to a link that takes you to the ability to purchase this. Every copy of the special edition is signed and independently numbered, so you can get a hand-signed, hand-numbered copy of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey Special Edition through the Patreon. So thank you, and I will see you next time for Chapter 6.